Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So, we got results regarding Washington. This is probably the last of our said uh, elections from this said week. So, we gotta take a look. We have, of course, the Kansas races, but those, of course, are districted. We have the United States House of Representatives. We don't really review those. Michigan, of course, we talked about Michigan. And now we're talking about the state of Washington. We're going to go ahead and go forward with that. So, um, talking about, of course, with the U.S. Senate election, you'll see, you know what? The map doesn't really look the way it's supposed to look like. And that is mainly because of course, the said, in this case, the split ticketing between the Republicans. You'll see there's Scott Nazarino and has take 5.7%. You would think, oh, that wouldn't be enough to really put Mr. Raul Garcia all the way to 21.9. But if you take a look at, in this case, there are more Republicans here, and there's really in this case, Paul Geisek. He's really taking 0.9%. He's pretty much the only Democrat. And really, that really takes very little away from Maria Cantwell. But then again, there are independents, socialist workers that do take away from Maria Cantwell in the end of the day. But in the end, she does very good in managing to carry um across the Cascades, because we typically see counties that are just west, west of the Cascades. There are more liberal. They are more liberal, more progressive. Counties to the east are more conservative. Um, but yes, you'll see here you got Clin- Clinkitat County, you got Kit- Kittitas County, Chillen County, Douglas County, Okanogan County, Ferry County. We got all these counties. Spokane County, just Walla Walla County, and Osatin County. They're all in favor for Cantwell, but of course this is subjugated to change. Of course, because of the split ticketing, it's going to look pretty much like the usual general election in the general election. So, do you think it's going to look like this in the general? No, no. I understand Maria Cantwell is popular, well, to a point, but this is super normal because of split ticketing. Here's 2018. Here, Maria Hutchinson, despite winning barely any counties, actually did pretty well. This is pretty rural, I want to believe. But yeah, she did pretty well. It really does depend on how many Republicans are running. In the end of the day, not really uh, how much you're pretty much winning in regards to, I would say, uh, the counties. But yes, Maria, I think she performed pretty well. Like, here is 54.68%. She overperformed her 2018 record in the blanket primary. So yes, Raul Garcia to face the incumbent Maria Cantwell. In the end of the day, so that is the United States Senate. The gubernatorial election, you'll see better results for Republicans. You got Dave Reichert, who is running against Bob Ferguson. And Ferguson, interestingly enough, I would say was kind of losing to the Mr. Former Congressman Dave Reachert in the more later polls, of course, being closer to election day. The polls have kind of changed, and now you'll see that Bob Ferguson has now taken a slight advantage. So, taking a look, going all the way down here, you'll see, you know what? You got Bob Ferguson leading in the polls, but not as much as we would all believe. You'll see it is consequently very close. So this is the map. Yeah, 49 to 43. But yes, you'll see Bob Ferguson was successful of carrying. Well, he couldn't carry Mason, and that's typically more of a liberal county. Well, actually, no, I think it's more conservative now. I honestly do not know. I'm not from Washington, but yes, there's of course you carry. Mr. Ferguson ended up carrying counties more from the said North Seattle area. You'd think, oh, Dave Reacher doing well in the polls would mean that he would win the open primary. Not necessarily, because there are a lot of Republicans split ticketing. There are Democrats split ticketing too, but being a blue state, Washington in this case, there are going to be more Republicans, and there's also independents that are picking, um, and libertarians and other factors. So yes, uh, that is the case. You got Simi Bird also taking away 10.5% from Dave Reachert, believe it or not. So that is the said case. Dave Reacher doing very well, better than Raul Garcia, but then again, he was ahead in the polls for a little bit, and I would say a little bit at the end of 2023, around February, interestingly enough. All right. Let's continue to go down, and you'll see there are the lieutenant governor election results. We got our two nominees, Denny Heck running as a Democrat, and then you have Dan Matthews here. I think Denny Heck is incumbent. Yes, he is. Dan Matthews. Denny Heck has won 49.1% of the popular vote. Then again, this is very similar to the Senate election. Then again, I would expect Dan Matthews to more struggle, but then again, there is also 16.6% being taken by Bob Haglund, another Republican. And Haglund went as far as winning a county, as you can see here. He won Garfield County right here, and he barely won. You'll see he won by 4 votes. They had a hard time choosing this. Well, I would say calling this race, but race was called uh later on the next day, the next night, because the election results were just too close for Republicans. Denny Heck, of course, became the Democrat nominee, but they had a hard time figuring out whether Dan Matthews or Bob Haglund was going to be the said um, nominee for the Republicans. So same results. You'll see you got Chelan County and Okanagan County stretching their influence out of the said Cascades, you'll see this county specifically was pretty close. Both players got 3,000 votes in that county. 8.9%. That does hurt Danny Heck. David Griffin taking 8.9. You got Patrick Harmon taking 2.6% in the Republican primary. So yeah, same result, except uh, when it comes to Garfield County being taken by Hagelin, pretty impressive. Now, this is a pretty interesting result for Republicans. Now, as you should see, Pete Serrano, 41.8% of the popular vote, does very well. But do not let this fool you. We've seen in other elections where, hey, you know what? Despite taking the popular vote in the open primary, you're still subjugated to lose because, to be honest, this is a three-way race. Two Democrats and one Republican. The writing's pretty much on the wall. You got Manka Dingra, who got 22.6% of the popular vote. Pretty close result, if you ask me. Then you got Nick Brown, who got 35.5%. There is no incumbent. And then there is Pete Serrano, who got 41.8%. Brown ended up carrying four counties. Brown ended up carrying King, Kitsap, Jefferson, and finally San Juan counties. So, interesting string of counties. And the rest, of course, goes to Pete Serrano here. But yes, 93% of the vote in. And just because you do well in the open primary, that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to win the general. We've seen in the California election, actually, in the state comptroller election, Republicans did do their best because you'll see what's it called? Lan He Chen performed very well in the said primary. He received 37.22%, defeating Malia Cohen, who received 22.66%. Because you do see Lan Chen was the only Republican. He was the only Republican, and he only got 37.22%. Chances there are low turnout, but as you can clearly see, not everyone participates in the open primary here. You'll still see good divide here. Yvonne Yu, 15.6%. Steve Glazer, 11.11. These are double-digit results for Democrats. And that, of course, really benefited Lenny Jen. So I would say, prediction wise, Nick Brown's going to win this election pretty easily because Maka Dingra isn't going to be there to cause him any trouble. He, after all, took 22.6%. So really, he's having a hard time catching up to Pete Serrano. But then again, this election is going to definitely be in favor for Democrats in the November election for the Attorney General race. And that pretty much, I want to believe, wraps us up. We do have to talk about, in this case, uh, yes, the state auditor. Let's see. The last they were uncontested, meaning that I don't think there was an election counted. Yes, Pat McCarty and Matt Hawkins. Although they were uncontested, there were still some blanket primary results. Pat McCarty, of course, received more of a primary expectation sort of win, 59.8%. 16%. So this is like the first round, but things will be changing a little bit. Supposedly, maybe she'll get like 58%, 60% even. But supposedly, the difference is there will be more of a higher turnout. After all, there was only less than 1 million voters that participated in this blanket primary. So that's sort of my expectation. Matt Hopkins could do a little bit better here after all. But yes, Pat McCarty, I wish we had the blanket primary results, but I would expect it to look sort of like your average general election, like right here. Uh, of course, this is 57, but then again, same deal with the insurance commissioner. You'll see Courtier. I don't even know his or her first name. 46%, and then you got Fortunato 28% for that Republican nomination. For Cordero, once again, 46% for the Democrat nomination. Fortunato 28% for that nomination. Now, there are some races that have not been called, unfortunately, like the Lands Commissioner. We got the Democrat nominee, I want to believe, right here. 20.9. Well, actually, no. We got one nominee. Let's see. Let's see. No. Get that in there. Shoot. This is. Okay, they probably removed. But who's the winners? Okay, this is the blanket primary results. We do not necessarily have a winner. Jamie Herrera Butler looks like she's going to end up carrying the Republican nomination. You got Dave Up the Grove, who received 20.91%. That's mainly, and he's doing impressingly very well. To be, despite being split ticketed by two Democrats. You'll see part of the reason that is too because Sue Cool Pedersen took 20.65. Very compatible to Jamie Herrera Butler by but Butler performing just 1 point better to her advantage here. But yes, I would expect this is an extremely close election. I expect Butler and Up the Grove to get into the said race and win the nomination, go to the general. As you can see here, it's even saying this is this like the general? This is primary race. 12 to 18. Who knows? If Sue Q Peterson wins, we'd see a Republican versus Republican, and this whole entire blanket primary system actually goes in the Republican Party's favor for the very first time in a blue state. So this would be kind of interesting to see, but I think writing's on the wall. Dave Up the Grove is probably going to end up winning the nomination. Despite Up the Grove actually performing not so well, and part of the reason was there were just too many Democrats running. We've seen that in California, where there were too many Republicans running in the race, and that resulted to two Democrats going into the general. Democrats are kind of, you got just these unknown individuals, after all, just going in. But yeah, let's take a look at the Secretary of State. I think that's our last one with the map. It is. And it's actually going to look like a general. Yes, it's going to look like the general election. It really does. Because then again, there's not really many opposition. So Steve Hobbs is, I want to believe, yes, is the incumbent Secretary of State. He received 48.8% of the popular vote, solidifying his votes in the said Seattle area as a result. Dale Wicketer won the Republican nomination by 36.6%. He was the only Republican in this whole said race, so this was very easy for him. He was, and then again, low turnout, 36.6%. You'd think, oh, he's screwed, in the general, but then again, he would most likely receive more votes, saying that this is going to be the general. But yes, you'll see here he does very good at winning counties, solidifying his uh, lead in the said East Republican stronghold, extending and winning more of the said general election counties we usually see in the general election for Republicans. So that is said interesting. Going over this really quickly, we have Superintendent of Education, Reichdahl, 40%. And Olson, 31%. These two independents will be facing each other in the general. Reichdahl is an incumbent. Keep that in mind. The state treasurer election, the Democrat, not of course, incumbent Democrat Palikoiti, I don't know how to say your name, won the nomination unopposed. Well, actually, no, there was, believe it or not, a blanket primary. We're going to take a look at the blanket primary results. Excuse me. Yeah, this looks like a general election. You don't really see a second Republican or anything other than that in this said, or a third party member in this said blanket primary. You'll see Pelosi 58.61. Looks like a general election. Um, they don't really have much maps. But yes, Mike Pelosi wins against Sharon Hanick. Well, not win yet, but they're going to the general. And finally, our judicial races. We have, actually, these are two positions. Mangia, 44%. And I don't really know who she's facing. I think there was. Yeah. Dave Larson and Saul Mangia. I would say Larson is more of the conservative. That's my guess. Doesn't really say a moderate or intermediate sort of position. 37.1%. Solomon Gia, my expectation would be the Democrat. He won, of course, when it comes to popular vote, 41.9%. They are predicted to go to the general election. They are going to the general election in November. Now, going to 2020, you'll see. Oh, yeah, this is Dave Larson's results. Stephen Gonzalez has won general election, so the primary was canceled, so this doesn't really matter. Gordon McLeod primary was also canceled. So this concludes our results. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, I will see you all in the next political episode.